Hello guys, this is Random Guy aka Jace, and I'm gonna do a review on Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, or it is known in Sweden, Apornas planet Uppgörelsen. And this is the prequel of Rise of the Planet of the Apes, which got critically acclaimed, and for that reason this movie has quite a lot of higher expectations going into it for most people, since Rise of the Planet of the Apes was quite a surprise for them. They thought it was gonna be a lot worse than it was, and now they're happy to go and see the next movie, which is this one, known as Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. If you're not familiar with the story, it is basically all of humankind is almost wiped out, leaving only a few survivors who are immune to the semen virus, or how it's pronounced. And they are looking for energy to power their electricity, and they have found that there is a plant on an island on the other side of the Golden Gate Bridge, and they are trying to get up there and fix it so they can get some power back, so they can contact other humans in the world. And because of that, they encounter some apes that thought that humans have been dead for a very long time, the apes that is, and they are led by Caesar. And the humans, or rather one human, is quite stupid and shoots the first ape he sees out of being frightened and nervous. And of course, the apes are not happy about this and tell them to leave or they are gonna get fucking killed. And that leads to some interesting, well, not really interesting, but it leads to some tension in the ape faction, because some feel like they should have killed him right there, while some do not. And it also creates some fraction in the human, because some feel like we should all kill them, ready for war, and some feel like, hey, maybe we should go and talk to them. And that is basically the plot of this movie, for anyone who is interested. And this plot is carried out mostly by the main characters, which is Caesar, another ape called Koba, and a male human lead with his girlfriend and a little bit of his son. Not too much, but you know, a little. And the performances by each of these characters, the most outstanding one is of course Caesar, done by Andy Serkis, the godfather of all of these kind of performances. And then there is of course the lesser known actors, or maybe those not lesser known but worse performance at least. And but not quite bad necessarily, just a little bit worse. Maybe their performance was above average, while Andy Serkis was, you know, close to perfect, if you want to describe it like that. The main human male character, the best I can say about him is that he feels neutral. He isn't bad, he isn't good. But at the same time, I don't notice him at all. Like, he just feels natural, kinda. He's just like, it is kind of like he would be there. You just don't notice it. It's hard to describe. What are the ones, you know, are usual actors, you know, standard actors, I would say, except Caesar, of course. And these, what's most interesting about this movie, I guess, is kind of how they go back and forth with how Caesar kind of makes up his mind. Sometimes the humans do something good, and he kind of lessens his, you know, grip. He lessen his guard a little bit, and then another human does something bad, and he's just like, God damn it. That is him. Basically, he takes a few steps back every time the humans do something bad, which happens quite a lot, because of course, is the cliche that there is this jackass coming with the humans to fix this power plant, and the excuse is that he is the only one who has worked with it, even though when he's forced to leave, they fix the plant either way, but that doesn't really matter, you know? And he violates the only term the apes have, which is don't bring any guns, which he does, and that creates a problem. And this is something that this movie does a little bit better than other types of movies that have this same kind of plot. And by plot is everyone has something good and bad in them, or rather there is something good and bad in all races. Meaning, there's some bad humans and there are some good humans, so to say. And they do it better because they go a little bit more back and forth in this movie. I feel in other movies, it's one main thing that just, turns everything around and then, you move on from there. But in this movie, they go a little bit back and forth, The trust hangs not so much by one thread, by several, which are always kind of broken. Unfortunately, I guess. And this is one thing that I will give, and that is the one thing I will give to this movie. However, what is bad is that this message or this plot point, you kind of see it like 20 minutes into the movie. I mean, you see it coming immediately, which makes this movie a bit boring for some people. In fact, this is what one of my very close friends felt like, that this thing made the movie quite a lot more boring, and he felt like the first movie was a lot more enjoyable because he really liked the connection and the interaction between the professor and Caesar in that movie, opposed to this movie where it was just kind of like everyone has potential for good in them. Well, in that movie it was a little bit more than one plot point, and that is really not enforced by the subplot points, or rather, they are. This message is supported by the subplot points, and in those I mean that the girlfriend is trying to connect with the son, because she's trying to be a mother and she wants to be close to the kid and all that good stuff. And they kind-ish, sort of do this by having some happy moments in interacting with the apes. But this again, it supports this message of humans can be good. And also there's this other point that the son draws. His hobby is to draw and read, I guess. And he gives this book to one of the apes and actually tries to teach them about reading. And again, this shows kind of like, oh, humans and apes can co-interact if we all learn to be nice to each other. So they don't really, make a little bit diversion of the main plot point. They more like they support it, and makes more arguments for it. And that is the main bad thing about this movie, which makes this movie an 8 out of 10 instead of 9 out of 10. Which, by the way, is my final score. We'll go into some more bad points actually now, which is if you actually paid attention during the movie, which I don't usually do. I usually can watch a movie without, I can enjoy everything, but in this movie, I got a little bit of a critique mind, if you would like to call it that, during some points of the movie, and that is, I actually noticed that the soundtrack, though not necessarily bad, was used what I would call bad. There was some scene I was just like, Yeah, I get it. This is supposed to be emotional because you're playing this music really loudly, which I usually don't think I will have noticed. But a really bad use of it was there is a scene that plays out 2 times, so to say. And this is handled quite poorly soundtrack wise. The first time it's kind of goofy soundtrack which lets you know that nothing is gonna happen, but the second time it's a lot of tension in the music, so you know that the ape is gonna kill the humans, and this kind of ruins it. You want, you know, the soundtrack is supposed to, make you feel tension, but since you know what's gonna happen, you're just like, yeah, okay, I get it. Though it is quite a funny scene. And that is the main bad points of the movie, I think. I mean, there is quite a lot of good points. I mean, as I said, the visuals are good, and the circus is good, and not really any bad production values. But there was one moment I think she needs a little bit more highlight, because I don't think this is highlighted enough. There is one scene where the humans get their power back, and the main leader of the colony gets his laptop working, or rather his iPad or his surf plat. It didn't specify which brand it was. And he gets to see some pictures of his sons and his wife. And you just see him tearing up, and it's quite a good scene emotional wise, because it shows that sometimes when we are alone we show emotions that we can't do otherwise. But what is really fantastic about this scene is that it shows how how we need technology so much that we can't even look at photos without it. I mean, we have become so addicted, so to say, of technology that, if there would be a day when we don't have power for electricity, we would take so many steps back, really. And that scene kind of underlines, it hides, it doesn't spell out that in your face. It kind of is something you need to think about yourself to realize, which is something I will give the movie to. It is actually the only scene I think where they do that, and that is just, the one who came up with it, hats off to you. And I think that's everything I have to say really about the movie. Uh, I mean, for me personally, it is a 7 out of 10 for those reasons I mentioned. The plot point is really quite rehearsed, some bad use of the soundtrack, and overall it isn't really interesting. I mean, a 7 out of 10 is not bad, it's actually quite good, but this movie doesn't deserve anything above, it isn't amazing or mind-blowing or anything like that. It's just a fine movie, really. Before I go, guys, I want to say also I'm gonna stream some Hearthstone, the next expansion, so to say, or rather the next adventure. So if you're interested in that, I will stream it on Twitch TV/Random Guy. I'm gonna post that. You should see it on the screen right now, actually, so I don't think I need to say it. And I also probably do some videos quite explaining how your mentality should be going into it, or rather my mentality going into it. And it's just gonna be some fun, and see if how hard it's gonna be. And also, I think my next review is gonna be of this, which is Attack on Titan No Regrets, which is this spin-off series of the popular anime Attack on Titan, or manga also, about Levi's backstory, which I don't know really when I'm gonna do, but it's gonna be one of my videos in the future. And anyway, that's all, guys. I'm signing out.